Everyone, thanks for joining again. My name is Chris Engel, and I am an Army veteran, an HR professional with over 12 years of experience. I'm also a military spouse and a mother of 4, and today I want to speak to you as a fellow military spouse, transparently discussing what it really means to hold this crucial role of a military spouse by going right into what is next. So this is a part 2 of our 3-part series. And today we are going to talk about USA Jobs profile building and resume building. What is USA Jobs? USA Jobs is the main website used by most federal agencies to post positions and receive applicants. Not the only website, but it is the primary website. The time requirement for the posting of each announcement will vary based on the agency requirements and also the type of position. If you have already created a profile, great. If not, no worries. We will cover how to create one, and we will also work on what it looks like to build your USA Jobs profile in a way that is marketable for the jobs you are applying. The first step is to apply for a federal position is creating a profile on USA Jobs. Once your profile is complete, you will have 4 areas to enter your information. The first tab for your profile is the Home section. In the Home section, you'll be able to view all applications that you have applied for and their status. A status can be in progress, received, referred, not selected, selected, or canceled. You will also be able to view your saved jobs. For example, you can pick a job and then you might want to further consider it or gather some more insight, and then you can go back and apply at a later date. The last area is the saved searches. This is one of my favorite functions within USA Jobs. You can create a search with a title and location and set your notifications to notify you through email when a position falls into that search category is posted. When creating an account, it is crucial that you fill in every step for building your profile. This information will be used every time you apply for any position. If you move or your preferences change or you want to make an update to your profile, make sure and keep it updated on a regular basis. I like to tell individuals that are actively looking for employment, go ahead and check it every week, if not at least every month. Think of it like your MySpace or Facebook or LinkedIn, a little old school there, but how important it was at one point in your life in high school or college to keep the social media up to date. You want to think of it that way as well when it comes to your USA Jobs profile. There are 11 tabs within the profile section. Don't let that worry you. Well, it'll go very quickly. You can do it alongside this presentation, or at a later time you can grab a cup of coffee or after hours a glass of wine and just take your time and really go through each section and fill it out. The first section is your contact. Complete this by adding your address. A P.O. box is fine. Email, always professional. We don't want to see sexymama@gmail.com or anything like that that could just speak as unprofessional. And then of course your phone number, and please make sure your voicemail is up to date and professional. If in doubt, use the automated voicemail that comes with most phone providers. Citizenship, you must annotate your citizenship. Hiring path, claim every path that you can. It just sets you apart and gives you an extra advantage. The more paths you can claim for the hiring authorities, the more times a hiring manager and HR will be able to see your name listed on the applicant list for these positions. Some of those hiring paths are veteran, military spouse, Schedule A, recent grad, and you'll be able to see those as options when you're looking at the job announcement. Federal experience, if you have held a federal position before, non-military, add it and make sure that it matches what is on your SF50. If you've held a federal position, you'll have an SF50. Make sure the information you put in your profile and later in your resume, make sure it matches what you put in for your SF50. Military experience, if you have served in the military, you'll want to add your service dates under the profile section and just make sure that it matches what is on your DD-214. Work experience, add all relevant work experience to the positions you are applying for. Under the Profile tab, if you are very thorough and add all of it, what it will do later is once we build your resume, it'll pull all that information. So really take your time and fill in the details there. Education, you'll want to add all of your education, including degrees and certifications and official training that you have received some type of certification for. Demographics are not required, but I recommend to add it. Languages, add all languages that you speak, read, and write. Organizations, add all organizations that you affiliate yourself with, such as nonprofits, churches, schools. And then references, it's recommended and not really required. However, once you get to the selection process of a job application, 3 professional references are required in order to be hired into a federal position. And that was an OPM requirement that went into effect earlier on this year. Within your profile, you can save up to 5 resumes on USA Jobs. You might be like, Chris, why would I have 5 resumes? I get it, but if you're applying for different kinds of positions, so it could be HR, legal, medical, you'll want to create a resume specific to that career field, so you may want to have up to 5 resumes within your profile. You may also have up to 10 additional documents stored on USA Jobs. This is great. Like USA Jobs is great about like storing your information, storing the documents. So it's super easy for you to hit that apply button when you get notifications from your Save Search. And on the tab here, you'll see some of the examples I have for additional documents, D214, transcripts, performance awards, appraisals, certifications, and things of that nature. The Preferences tab allows you to set specific preferences that you would prefer, such as how much you're willing to travel, type of appointment, permanent versus temporary, part-time versus full-time. Again, all of these, you can set your own preferences, but really, think about it and think what is most interest to you and what would be best for your schedule as a military spouse. USA Jobs, like I said, has an amazing search function, When you're looking for that perfect opportunity, you can really set your search with these filters to be exactly what it is that you're looking for, and then it'll notify you daily, weekly, monthly, whenever a job announcement goes into that Save Search category that you have set. So across the top here, the keywords can include the position title you are looking for, the location, city, and or state you'd prefer to work in. And if you notice the flag near the top of the page where you can select Save This Search, or if the search is already saved, you can select Edit Saved Search. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you can set your own filters for your search. And this way you can narrow it down to exactly what you're willing to apply for, what fits into your career goals. And then also, you can add remote, telework, or hybrid, or any of those additional little things that would be helpful for you when it comes to applying for that perfect job opportunity. And I just want to share something a little personal. I know this can be a lot. You have the Save Search and the profile and the resume, and you have to check it, and it can be a lot of work. They say that applying for a job can be just as much work as actually working in your job, right? So I was deployed in 2016, and it was a 9-month deployment, and I had applied for 75 federal positions through USA Jobs, 75 during that 9-month time frame. During that, I only received 3 interviews, and I landed 2 job offers. Since then, I went from a GS-7 to a GS-13 in less than 5 years, and I tripled my income. And most importantly, I work in a career field that I love. So I share that to say, keep it up. Do it because this is important to you, and this is your life, and this is your career. And it does matter. So now let's go right into your resume. So think of your resume as your first introduction to a possible future employer. First, it is important that you understand the difference between a federal resume and a civilian resume. Love career and education centers on military installations, love the work that they do, And I have noticed that sometimes the resumes are very civilian focused. And so what we've done is we've talked to different federal agencies and talked to different private sectors to really get a broad overview of what it is that they want on a resume. So this is just one example of what the difference could look like. A federal resume can have contact information, 10 years of relevant work experience. And don't worry, if you haven't worked in a specific field for that long, it's okay. You can always pull from volunteer work or things of that nature. Both military and civilian experience, education, affiliations and organizations, like I said, volunteer work, and references. Whereas a civilian resume has contact information, 5 years or less of work experience that's relevant, very civilian focused, and education only primary degrees. And then of course, references as well. So USA Jobs, when applying for a federal position, I strongly encourage y'all to use the resume builder within USA Jobs. For one, it pulls all the information that you've just put so much time into your profile, and most agencies prefer it because of the layout that it puts your resume in. Most agencies prefer that type of resume, so I just encourage y'all to use that. So the first step within the resume builder of USA Jobs is your contact information. Of course, this is an essential part of your resume. Why? It's the way for the employer to get a hold of you, to set up the interview, or just find out more information about you. And just a few tips to keep in mind. Your name should be your name. You can add Mr., Miss, Mrs., but you should not include your military rank. And I'd like to explain why. You never know if the person on the other end has prior military service or not. If they don't, they could assume that SGM Smith is a typo. Somebody with military experience would know that that stands for Sergeant Major, but somebody who doesn't have that military experience might not know that, and they think it's a typo. So really think about that, like if you have been in the military and you're translating your military experience to civilian lingo, just pause for a moment and be like, what was it like for me before I had the knowledge of the military, language, if you will. Your address can be your physical address, or it can be a PO box if you feel better about that. Your phone number is best when it's mobile. It allows more opportunities for the employer to get a hold of you. And then your voicemail, always, always professional. And if you're in doubt, use the automated voicemail option. And then when you've applied for jobs, know what jobs you've applied for. I'm kind of over the top, so I always encourage to create some sort of tracker. Excel's great, or Word document, whatever, or even the notes on your phone, just to create some sort of tracker of applied for this job with this agency on this date. So when they call you, you can speak to that. You might not want to say like, oh, I applied for so many. Which one are you? Even if you are applying for a lot, you don't want to come off as if you don't care, right? And then always answer professionally, and it could be an unknown caller. So, whenever you answer your phone, even if it's unknown or an 800 number or a number you don't recognize, answer professionally, because a lot of times when these agencies are calling, they do show up as an unknown call or with a 1-800 number. All right, so work experience. So normally when I say go back 10 years if possible, individuals might feel some sort of way about that. But really, it's all about thinking back to jobs you have held, positions you have held, volunteer, paid or non-paid, in school or out of school. And how does that experience that you gained from that position or that education or that volunteer work, how does it relate to the job that you are applying for? What I mean by that is, say you're working as an operations manager for the last 10 years, there's no need to add a barista position that you held at Starbucks when you were 16 years old, unless it pertains directly to the job that you're applying for. And then also, A lot of agencies don't prefer bullet format. They prefer a paragraph format in an organized fashion with a detailed job description and the duties that you did underneath that job description. And then when writing your job description, it's crucial that you bring out every important detail about the duties that you held. The reviewer, the reader, the hiring manager, they want the facts. They need to know what you did, how many times, what was the outcome, and how did you leave the position better than when you found it. So one thing to keep in mind is quantify it. Quantify what you did. And if you can, add 2 data points so they can compare the before, when you first got to the position, and the after. Include the number of hours worked per week for that position. That is how the HR office will qualify your experience. So oftentimes I do see that the dates are there, but the hours are not there. The hours and the dates is how we quantify the experience and then also qualify you for the specific GS grade that you can be offered based on your experience. Include your annual salary for the position. It highlights any raises or promotions. So if it was a paid position, especially in the military, if you were an E3 and then by the time you got out you were an E7, right? The reviewer, if they don't have any military experience, they might not know what that meant, but if you add the salary, they can be like, oh, all right, yeah, so they were promoted and they left at this higher pay, which one would draw the conclusion that that means that you left with more responsibility and more work experience. This part I love. You can add all of the training. So let's break it down just for a moment. Degrees, that's an easy one. Your GPA, you don't have to add it. It's not a requirement. If it's a 3.75 or higher, I recommend adding it. But if it's not, or you just don't want to, totally optional and not something that can be held against you. Certifications, if you've received any kind of certification for any kind of training, add it. It might not relate directly to the job you're applying for, but for one, it's cool. It shows that you care about your growth, your development, and it shows that you are a very diverse individual with lots of different types of experience and trainings. Same thing with training. If you've done an official training and received some type of certification, also taken a test and received some type of certification based on that test or training, go ahead and add that as well. Affiliation. So this is another great section within the USA Jobs resume builder. And most resumes do not have them on them that we see. Most individuals don't add who they're affiliated with. So I encourage it, especially for military spouses. It really sets you apart and lets the reviewer and the hiring manager know that you have a broad variety of experience to offer the agency for that position. So volunteer work at nonprofits, churches, organizations, schools, libraries. Think of it like, FRG within the military or yellow ribbon events that you volunteered at, or maybe, it was within your community right there on the installation, you coordinated trainings or lunch and learns for the spouses, or you coordinated outings for the spouses during a deployment and childcare. Things like that, that takes skill and experience. You could relate that to customer service, right? So I just challenge y'all to think outside the box of where your experience has come from, because I promise you have a lot to offer, and quantify it, and of course put in those dates so it can possibly qualify your grade and step. And the same is for volunteer work. Your organizations and affiliations that you are members of, and then what is the volunteer work that you do within that organization. And just keep in mind that it shows that you have a good work ethic, you have a willingness to serve, and it offers you a dynamic edge to the position that you're applying for. And lastly, references. References, like I said, they now are a requirement to actually be selected for a position. So while you don't have to have them on your resume and or your profile, it does give that hiring manager and HR an upper, edge, if you will, to just call them directly. Otherwise, they have to contact you to attain 3 professional references for any position that they are considering you for, and they have to call them. They have to call them and they have to actually hear from them feedback on you. So one thing is to always let your references know that they're going to be called. Let them know the type of position that you're applying for. And if it's someone you haven't talked to in a few years, or 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, that's fine, right? But just say, hey, this is where I'm at in my career right now. This is the job I'm applying for. Here's where I think I have a good fit. Do you mind, when they call, giving them some background on what it was like to work for me, or work with me, work for me, my work ethic, my character, my team skills, all of that, right? And so that way, when they get that call from the agency, they don't feel caught off guard. So I just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for joining today. Our next part 3, we will explore specific job opportunities within the federal government. And again, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm on LinkedIn. You can send me a message, send me your resume. I'm happy to take a look at it. And I wish you all the best of luck.